But they are something which bring out the best in humanity. And something that you said earlier about the need of God, right? The utility of believing in God. So when we look at this life from a bird's eye point of view, 100 years ago, people like us, we were here in Speaker's Corner, having a discussion, talking about politics, religion, theology, whatever. Where are those people today? They're dead. They're finished. Now the struggles and the pain and the happiness and the joy and the tears and the laughter in their life, it's all gone. So when you look at life from a God-centric point of view, about you have a limited time upon earth, you have times of happiness, you have times of sadness, then you start to actually understand what is the perspective on life. Why do we actually exist? Because if a human being didn't go through, like for example, the lockdown, we had the lockdown, right? How happy were you when the restrictions were lifted and you could go out, you could meet your friends? Yeah, but normally, if there was no restrictions, you would just see it as normal. You'd see it as your right to just leave the house. So the difficulty made you appreciate something you took for granted.
But would the difficulty itself, would the appreciation outweigh the fact that you could have been happy during those 2 years or year of lockdown? Is that one moment where I can reunite with my friends after a year of working from home really outweigh the fact of being able to have that experience in person for the last 2 years?
That's bad, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good question, Augustus. The assumption there is that which one of the two scenarios leads to the maximum happiness?
I think falling unconscious is the last thing we're worried about.
It's a quest of humans to reach maximum happiness. But that's kind of delusion, because the amount of people who never get there, as well as also innocence and a lot of innocent people who never even have an opportunity to access happiness.
Yeah.
Say I know a Syrian refugee
I haven't been here for 20 years and it has changed. It's
Spain.
become more religious.
Where was the fairness in that trial? Where was the happiness who was promised?
So the thing is that this life, we're not promised happiness.
So what's the point of life?
The point of life is a test. We are here to be tested with good and evil, and the purpose of life is to have a relationship with God, to worship God. Now, it is more than, like for example, in our life we eat, we sleep, we go to work, we do these things. In Islam, you live your life as you are, but you live it in a God-centric way. So, you know, sorry? With God in mind for your actions.
At that point, where is your free will in that? If you're doing all your actions for the point of pleasing some God, how on earth is that you being your legitimate best self if you're doing it in delusion or passing this test to access what this?
Yeah. So that's so being filmed. Yeah. So that's the paradigm shift with Islam. Islam makes it clear that it's not about you. It's about living a God-centric life.
Submit your will. That's exactly what
it was.
You're exactly right. So the thing is, in today's society, we are socialized and we grow up in this environment in which it's about do what you want, do what you please, what is right is what you feel. Islam gives you a different paradigm. You know, sometimes you see these images where it's like a vase, but it's actually two faces looking at each other as well. Sometimes you get these images and it's either it looks like a rabbit or it looks like a duck, right? So you have this thing called the gestalt shift, when you shift from one paradigm to another, right? Something looks totally different from another perspective. Islam gives you a different perspective on life. It's not about us and how we feel. It's about the submission to the Creator, and in that submission, God promises you will have peace of heart.
I do really agree with and when I've spoken to Muslims before, I think the Muslim perspective is really
but then sometimes after 4 years you've got to think.
Sometimes I don't quite agree to some extent. Like what happens to the people who say fail the test?
We always go to McDonald's.
It's too much for them.
By one kind of French fries, and sit there about 6 or 7 of them, and the staff would have a
what
breakdown and
happens
say, please buy something.
after the test of this life? Do they burn in hell because they did something wrong, right? Do they burn in hell because they did a test?
Well, you know, where I
So
live,
the thing is, in Islam, we do believe in heaven and hell.
used to be a similar place.
We do believe in justice of God. So God is loving, He's the just, He's the good. But nobody will have any injustice done on them. That's a promise
They
from
tried
God.
to start the Victoria
So
Park
on the-
back in Swiss. There's a beautiful
Sorry?
fountain in the city. There, all the doctors, when they wanted to go on
If no one has
strike,
injustice done to them,
Isle of Dogs would come and
we all
have
know
a
in the world there is actually justice on a daily basis.
No. As in on the day of judgment, there'll be no injustice.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I've got just not a debating question, but like
Sure.
a factual question. Is the day of judgment like the day that you die, or is there physically a point that we do not know in time in which God will judge this planet?
Yeah. Very good question, Ray. So the thing is, as soon as a person dies, their afterlife begins. But the day of judgment is a period of time in the
I
future.
used to come in the 80s.
And what we're told about it
I made a lot of
is not just through what we believe is the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, but also Jesus and other prophets that came.
There have been
And they are signs towards the day of judgment.
arrests.
And what we're supposed to be doing is we're supposed to be living our life in the best way possible in preparation for that day. And today's society, we start to see some of the signs about the day of judgment which the Prophet spoke about. For example, the Prophet was asked about the day of judgment, when is it going to be? And he said about the barefooted Arabs, the Bedouins, these people who were, dealing with camels and sheep and these things, that they will compete with each other to build tall buildings. Now today in the Middle East, because of the boom in oil, these people who thought for thousands of years, they were just dealing with camels and herd and sheep, they are now building these tall extravagant buildings. He also spoke about time and all these other various types of things. So we believe in this end time eschatology in prophecies, and those are signs, but the actual hour, the day of judgment, we don't know. We don't have to
Delivery of puppies.
That's the first speaker corner there. But one of the things at your age, which is very important, is that a lot of people don't think about mortality.
What is your angle?
Especially at your age. They don't think about death. They don't think about these things. However, even if you're a secularist, even if you're an atheist, there are huge benefits to be thinking about death, right? These people who speak about personal development and these types of things and high achievement in life and excellence, they always emphasize this, that if you live your life with the assumption of abundance of time, you actually become lethargic. So even if you're not religious, to think about death has these benefits, right? Many
On this planet.
the benefits of death is that it makes you less attached to this world. So the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, the most intelligent people, the most wise of people are those who remember death and prepare for it. I'm paraphrasing here. But the point is that if, for example, you're living a life of hedonism, of following worldly desires, thinking about mortality, it gets you detached from that reality. And it makes you think about higher, bigger things.
What about, not about the teachings of Islam, what about the actual material existence of a God? So, I believe that the most stupid thing you can do is believe completely one way or the other. Somebody used to say there's zero chance that there exists a God, regardless of what the teachings actually say. There's a 100% chance that there is a God. Because, in my opinion, the teachings of religions are important, even if there isn't a God, because they can say things which are important to know how to live your life, regardless of if you're going to be judged after.
Right. I wouldn't agree with that. I would say what would be irrational is not to think about the question. Because some people, they make a decision either way without thinking about it. Right? So I do believe there is a God. And I do believe that if one is to use their reason and their logic and their natural disposition, they will arrive at that. Because sometimes God is strawmanned, right? Like we have an idea of a man in the sky with a grey beard throwing down. Yeah. But we believe, and the same with Jesus and Moses and all the other prophets, that God is transcendent, nothing like a human being, nothing like a physical thing.
Well, I agree with Islam so much more than Christianity.
Well, even Christianity, you see, a lot of what we consider today as Christianity, it's not from Jesus. Because Jesus believed what we believe, right? It came later. You had interpolations, you had Greco-Roman influences, Hellenistic thinking upon the Bible. But the prophets of old, Jesus, Moses, and the prophets, they taught transcendent creator, beyond space and time. One of the things we learn in Islam is, if you imagine what God looks like, that's not God. Like he's beyond any comprehension.
Islam keeps the beginning of humanity formed.
And how does that intercalate with science? Because I don't think that science and religion are mutually exclusive at all. But there are some points in which the teachings of religion and teachings of science do come into conflict.
Yeah.
Like in Christian culture, you've got some people saying Adam and Eve 6,000 years, and then you've got the science. It's just true. There's,
humans go back thousands of years before. Yeah.
My grandmother used to give me.
There's a very complex way of doing it and a simple way of doing it. I'm going to simplify it. But for more information, I can give you some other stuff. In Islam, we believe that science is a beautiful thing. You look out at nature, you apply your reason, you try to understand the workings of the world.
Islam furthered science incredibly.
Yeah.
He told me I should read the Bible.
Because we consider it a form of worship.
And I said, no,
Yeah. Do you not think? Do you not reflect? Yeah. So we don't have a problem with science, we embrace science. But as Muslims, we believe in miracles. So for example, God created the world. He created the system of the seasons. He created reproduction. He created us to be able to see and to decipher different colors and this type of thing. However, apart from then what we call natural world, which science is there, we also believe miracles are possible. It's possible for God to right now create a child ex nihilo from like without mother and father. Why? Because God has created the system of reproduction, but you can also create it without. So we believe that Adam and Eve are miraculous creations. Adam is a miraculous creation. Some people, they think this is unscientific, but it's not. So I'll give you an example. Jesus, he is somebody that we believe was born without a father. Now every person here has a father and a mother, right? Why is it inconceivable that God can create without a father? It's not logically incoherent. So we believe in miracles, which are exceptions, but we believe in generally science as well.
If God is able to do miracles at any point, what's the ethics behind God then testing every human out there if they're mortal life? Why should to appreciate life? But I'm sure that some people, despite all the horrendous conditions they go through, they never get to a state of enlightenment where they're able to appreciate what they have. And so God's mission to some degree fails some people in appreciating the good that they have. Because in a sense that, I don't know, some child who's left starving in Africa.
Can I add to that? So how can somebody who's had something's been done to them which is beyond their control, and that sets a path for the rest of their life, and they will do bad things in their life, but it was done to them as well, but do they fail the test?
Yeah, very good question. The thing is, every person is judged according to the knowledge they have and the circumstances they're in. So if you're somebody who's brought up in, say, a certain part of South London, you live on an estate, there's gangs, there's drugs, there's all these issues, and there's somebody else who grows up in a suburban area, country life, they will have two different sets of tests. This person may indulge in things, that person may not. And God takes account of all of those things. So it's not the case that the person's condemned by the conditions that God created in the first place. That would be unjust. It's not like that. So each person goes through those stages.
If God is able to create anything, like you mentioned in terms of the creation of humanity, how God was created reproduction and created the ability to differentiate colours, why is God unable to create a test where no suffering has to be gone through? Why is he unable to? Why is there no solution for a system where nobody has to suffer?
I don't know the answer to your question. What I can say is that in Islam we are told this is what God did, and in Islam there's a big focus on asking questions, thinking, reasoning, but there's also certain points at which we are told there are no answers. So could God have conceivably created a world without suffering? Yes. Did God do that? No. Why didn't God do that? I don't have an answer for that. So in the Quran, it teaches us that, look, you use your reason, you use your mind to arrive at truth, but then why God did certain things we're not given the answers for. So when I'm asked, like for example, you've asked this question, but someone can ask, as Muslims, it's encouraged for you as a Muslim you're supposed to pray 5 times a day, right? So that's the obligation, right? Why not 6? Why not 4? Why not 3? Yeah. So the thing is, in Islam, when we are talking to people about Islam, we can explain to them why we believe in God. We can explain to them why we believe in the Quran. And then we tell people why Islam is true. But then why these things exist, we will simply say, God knows, we don't know.
I've got
Sure, sure.
Suffering. Have you ever been to the gym? No. You ever studied? Yes. Right, so when you study to an exam, you're suffering.
Yes.
It was the same argument as the lockdown.
Sure.
It's a bit more technical, but what about Shia versus Shiites and all the different branches and interpretations of Islam?
Yeah.
How does that fit in together from your perspective?
Sure. So the thing is, there's a difference between Islam and Christianity, that Christianity has many different schisms and
Many of them political.
and it started off quite early. With Islam, what you'll find is the vast majority of the Muslims are Sunni, and then the Shia are a small percentage. And in the history of Islam, they initially split from Sunniism due to a political reason, and then later on they developed their own theology, which was different. So the good thing about the history of Islam is you will see that Sunniism is the orthodoxy that goes back, and there's no break in between the death. There's no break in between the death of the Prophet and the Muslims today. So Shiaism is an offshoot. So I'm a Sunni, but if a Shia was to say I'm right or I'm right, we wouldn't just draw our swords. I will give evidence. I will say this is why we represent pretty much the whole Muslim population.
Because that falls in line with if you're given something, that's how God will judge you.
Sorry, say that again?
That falls in line with if you're giving something, that's how
God will judge you, yeah, definitely. So the thing is, you can't just, Islam is not something you can understand straight away. No, sorry, you can understand it straight away, but to understand some of the deep questions that you guys are asking. So the Quran, it actually goes over these things in quite some detail. It goes over suffering. That's a key thing. It goes over God consciousness, love, hope, fear, trust, all these things. And one of the things that I did, you're a teenager still, right? You're like 18?
I'm 18, yeah.
18, yeah. One of the things that I did when I was a teenager is I was brought up in a household, and religion was something that was practiced, but it wasn't like I fully understood everything. So I got copy of the Quran when I was a teenager, and I started to just read it and think about it. So that's the same thing I'd recommend that you do, and I'll give you this as a gift.
That's yours.
No, we've got loads of them over there. It's free.
Not in Arabic anyway.
No, it's all in English, and it's very easy to read. And we've got a whole bunch of them there. This isn't mine. I give these away. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, Ray, right? Your name. It'll give you a different perspective on life. Because the thing is, you're 18 now, and I guarantee you'll be 60 before you know it. Every person that you meet here that's older, like that gentleman, I shouldn't point, but you get my point. If you ask them, do you remember what it was like when you were 15? They'll say, I remember it like it was yesterday. You know? So it's better for you to find the purpose of life in your young age than when you're old and senile and
what does happen to people? I mean, only God knows. What does happen to people who do fail the test? Who are, I mean, most of the Muslim people I've spoken to, they've said to me that they disagree with homosexuality and it's the judge, not them. But what about stuff like, suicide? Is that failing the test? Is that like a straight pass into
Islam teaches suicide is forbidden. Now, as Muslims, we know that in our religion that this is forbidden and this is a path to destruction and hellfire. However, if somebody's never heard of Islam and they were gone through an emotional breakdown, mental breakdown, they kill themselves, again, that's up to God. You're only accountable in Islam, Ray, for what you know. So, a Native American living out in some random place, never heard of Islam, lives, dies, he's not accountable for that. People are only accountable for what they know.
What I'm getting from you is some of my family is very religious in Christianity, and actually that's part of what pushed me away from religion in the first place.
Well, your family's religious and that turned you away.
But what I'm getting from you is Islam is more of a forgiving religion that I've seen in the past. So, when speaking to Christians, one of the epicenters of Christianity is about forgiveness in faith. If you have faith, you are forgiven. And I was told that in Islam it's not quite the same. But getting from you, God is actually more forgiving.
Yeah,
Based on God will judge you and everything that you are given.
Yeah.
And therefore, there's a bit more, not leeway, but,
There is. And that's a common misconception about Islam. The common misconception about Islam is that it's a very
God said he saw me in court. I don't even know where that is, bro. I don't even know who this guy is, bro.
Let him run this, Mark.
Dude, who is this guy, bro? Why the fuck is he pick up on me? You guys mad, bro.
That's all right.
You are nuts, mate.
Yeah?
You all got
Many people say you're crazy.
mad.
You wasn't crazy. People saw him. And you're lying. Why are you lying?
It's a good time that I can, if we walk away, because this is
Rubbish! This rubbish!
let's move away to somewhere.